Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and it's episode 18 of my State of the Franchise addresses. So, this is the 18th of 32 teams, and it's the Minnesota Vikings that I'm looking at here. Now, the Vikings decided to dump now Super Bowl winning quarterback Sam Darnold after a 14-win season ended with a wild card loss to the Rams in 2024 in the previous season. They instead put their trust in second-year rookie JJ McCarthy, who missed all of his rookie season hurt. So essentially, he was a second-season rookie, if you like. Now, do not read criticism into those remarks. Darnold was a 1 year deal, and the Vikings must have felt he had limited upside compared to McCarthy, who's much younger, obviously. Given that the Seahawks' success was driven by their defense rather than Darnold, their assessment of Darnold may still have been a reasonable one. But what it does mean is that have they got it right in terms of McCarthy being more capable than Darnold? So it's the McCarthy part of the question that is the questionable bit, if you like. After his first season in action, the injury is definitely still out. Sorry, the jury is definitely still out on that one, and the verdict will determine what the Vikings can achieve in 2026. There are about half a dozen teams who go into the next season where they need to see a distinct improvement in quarterback play, and the Vikings are one of them. But how does the Vikings roster look all round as we head into this off-season? Well, I'll go through each position, but let's start with that quarterback position. McCarthy missed 7 games last season, but ended with a 6-4 record. But his own performance was very inconsistent. He threw 12 picks to 11 touchdowns and struggled to get in sync with his primary asset and star wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. Whispers have been heard about adding competition, and now they're more than whispers, for McCarthy this off-season, which is hardly a ringing vote of confidence in him. With a talented receiver core, the Vikings ranked 30th for pass offense last season, and they should really be a top 10 unit in this area, as they were with Darnold at quarterback and in Kirk Cousins' final 4 seasons with the Vikings. Now, there's a name that might come back to the surface. Who knows? So next season is huge for McCarthy. He first needs to win that starting job as their prospective starting quarterback. He and then any other quarterback that gets a shot at this role has to get the Vikings back to the levels they were prior to last season. McCarthy's backup Carson Wentz is a free agent, and Max Brosmer struggled when he started. So adding a replacement for Wentz who can challenge McCarthy seems a sensible option for the Vikings this off-season. But one thing's for sure, they have to get better quarterback play than they've had. Otherwise, they're doomed basically next season, especially in a tough division. So let's move to running back. Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, and to a lesser extent Xavier Scott combined for 1,768 yards and 10 touchdowns last season, as the Vikings ranked 21st for run offense. Veteran Jones missed 5 games, but both he and Mason are about to enter the final year of their current deals. With the same running backs in situ for next season, it seems unlikely the Vikings can be any more than a mid-ranked run offense next season. So maybe trading one of them away and drafting a running back may make sense, especially as the Vikings are another team that is not in a good salary cap position. In fact, they're in one of the worst cap positions in the league. Wide receiver, the Vikings have to get more out of Justin Jefferson, as I said, than they did last season. And with Jordan Addison in off-field difficulties again, and Jalen Naylor hitting free agency, Addison's a trade rumor candidate again there. Um, the Vikings have a wide receiver room in flux as we enter the off-season. The point, Reed Jefferson, is you are paying him rightly 140 million over 4 years. So you in the world of salary caps, it is vital if you get value for money. If poor quarterback play prevents that happening, then you will not get that. That's not Jefferson's fault, but you're paying a huge chunk of your salary cap to Justin Jefferson, and you have to get results from him. And that's down to the quarterback play, as I say. Addison cannot keep out of trouble off the field, so his future with the Vikings has to be in doubt. And with Naylor being a free agent, there's a lot of uncertainty about the wide receiver core right now. If they're able to bring all three back and get pre 2025 production levels from them, then all will be good here. But if they do not or make changes, whoever they bring in has to hit those levels for the Vikings to succeed in 2026. In 2024, they got 2,800 yards and 25 touchdowns from their best five three wide receivers. In 23, it was 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. What they need next season is somewhere in that area, say 2,600 yards and 20 touchdowns. So much better than they got last season. So plenty of offensive questions. And what about tight end? One of the reasons they need wide receiver production is the decrease in production from TJ Hawkinson at tight end. In 2022 and 23, Hawkinson averaged 50, 53 and then 64 yards a game and had 11 touchdowns across those two seasons. In 2024, his yards dropped to just 45, then to an even lower 29 yards a game last season, and he had just three touchdowns across those two injury shortened seasons. Indeed, Josh Oliver had more touchdowns with four than Hawkinson's three last season. So this may be the injuries affecting his performance, but the numbers are the numbers. So it seems unlikely he will get back to those numbers of 22 and 23. That is what the Vikings hoped for to get from him when they signed him. So with he and Oliver more likely to record in the area of 600 yards and 8 touchdowns next season, and the doubts over the wide receiver production, the previously all-powerful Vikings pass offense may not be at their disposal in 2026. Well, let's have a look at the offensive line to finish off the offensive side. With the Vikings running game ranked 20th last season and their quarterbacks getting sacked no fewer than 60 times, there is clearly need to get improvement from the O-line. Some of those sacks were on immobile or inexperienced quarterbacks, but still the sack numbers were way too high. Injuries were an issue. Centre Brian Kelly played just 8 games and Christian Darrisaw also missed significant time. When healthy, this O-line should be a top 10 unit in the league. So maybe as well as the injuries, it is the guys behind it, namely the quarterbacks and running backs, that doing their part rather than the O-line not doing theirs. With all the starting 5 O-linemen signed up for 26, the Vikings may well stick with what they have, particularly given their cap situation, health allowing. So there's an awful lot of questions about the Vikings offense, but what about the defense? On the defensive front, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, and Jalen Redmond were the guys that manned this area for the Vikings last season, and Redmond was the highest graded of the three with PFF ahead of his two more vaunted and higher paid colleagues. He's now a free agent though, and the Vikings need to re-sign him. With both of Allen and Hargrave the wrong side of 30 and Hargrave about to start a contract year, it is possible one of them is traded to create cap space or to allow room to re-sign Redmond. Um, Whether they trade a veteran and or do not retain Redmond, the Vikings may well be looking for a defensive front personnel in the draft. In terms of draft picks, by the way, they have their I was just checking and making sure, right? Yeah, they've got 4 in the first 97 picks, but no fifth rounder. So they have to get those first 4 picks pretty much nailed if they're to move forward next season. Let's move on to the edge rushing unit. Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel were the starters here for the Vikings last season, with Dallas Turner also a major contributor. As Grenard and Van Ginkel missed 5 games apiece last season. With Van Ginkel about to enter the final year of his current contract and Greenard having 2 years left on his deal, I can see one of them being a cap casualty. Somebody's got to be allowed to go here to create some cap space. As the emergence of Turner means they may have a ready-made replacement in place. That may see them look for help in this area via the draft. And again, I've said this before, relevant to other teams. It's a really strong class of edge rushers in this draft, so this might be to be looking for one. Inside linebacker, Eric Wilson and Blake Cashman did a pretty decent job here for the Vikings last season. Wilson's now a free agent though, and Cashman has 1 year left on his deal. It's a theme here that contracts are coming to an end, isn't it? So given their age and contract situation, inside linebacker is another area the Vikings need to look to address this off-season, and again it might have to be via the draft. Safety. The Vikings had one of the very best pass defenses in the league last season. Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus were part of the reason at safety. Smith appears set to retire, though, which leaves a massive hole to fill at safety. Theo Jackson did fairly well when he played last season, but it seems likely safety is yet another position of need for the Vikings this off-season. Cornerback. Isaiah Rodgers and Byron Murphy manned the corners for the Vikings in 2025. Rodgers in particular was excellent, and we're both back for 2026. The Vikings finally have a position that they don't need to really look at this off-season. On special teams, free agent Ryan Wright had a strong season punting the ball, and the Vikings need to get him back. Will Rijkaard was also really good at kicker, missing just 2 kicks from 66 attempted, and they were both long distance field goals. Miles Price seems set to continue as their kick returner. So, to sum up the Vikings, it's easy to look at the Vikings' exceptionally strong finish to last season and see them as a major threat to all for next season. But beneath the surface, there are obvious cracks that need filling. Better play at quarterback, running back, tight end being three of them, and then getting the most out of their wide receiver core. Quarterback is one they are certainly going to need to see a big improvement from either JJ McCarthy or somebody else in 2026. They don't get that, they're really going to be in trouble, I think. They need to get the O line healthy and maybe add some depth to it too. On defense, they have some key salary cap or free agent calls to make. Notable all across the D line, an inside linebacker, and finding a way to fill that Harrison Smith side chasm at safety. When I stand back, this Vikings team looks full of players who may be coming out of their prime years. So is this the window of opportunity closing for them? This off-season is going to be huge in terms of keeping the right pieces in place to make a serious run at titles. If they fail to do so next season, a major rebuild could be on the cards in Minnesota. But it is the offense that really needs to deliver next season, as they definitely underperformed last season, whilst making the right personnel calls on defense is going to be critical too. Overall, right now, I just don't see. I just see too much uncertainty across the board for the Vikings to make a serious run next season. And in the NFC North, that could mean they will finish bottom of that division next season unless they have a really good off season and then get better quarterback play. Like I say, it's a tough division in 2026. The Bears have surprised everybody. They're not going to get any worse, I don't think. The Lions, I think, will improve. The Packers will stay as a good team. So if the Vikings don't up their game, they could well end up bottom of that division next season. So that's it for the Vikings. So who do I move on to next? It'll be the Carolina Panthers. So look for that one coming up next. Take care for now.